Hello and welcome to Esoteric Visions. This is an updated version of the audio. A person commented on the original video and said that the audio was too low, so I've re-recorded it. But anyway, welcome. This is a flick through Alan Moore and Steve Moore's Moon and Serpent bumper book of magic, which is kind of like a graphic grimoire, an illustrated guide to magic, with essays on how to do it, basically, essentially. This came out a couple of weeks ago, and now that I'm re-recording the audio, I've had time to have a good sit with it, and it really is absolutely fantastic. It's chock-a-block full of activities and histories, and it's a real practical, hands-on how to become a magician, basically. So let's have a look inside. It's full colour throughout and is just absolutely incredibly chock-a-block full of stuff. It's quite overwhelming. It's about 400 pages in total, and I would say it's probably a good place to start if you are interested in magic and the occult. I would pretty much say it's a beginner's book. So it's like a primer for magic. So it's basically like a history of magic, a practical hands-on how to do magic. It covers centuries of magical practice, with comic strips and essays, and it really just breaks it down into bite-sized chunks, kind of. When I say bite-sized, there is a lot of text to get through, but it's kind of divided into different sections. You've got comic strips, you've got essays, you've got practical ways of doing magic and the history of magic. Like, for instance, the book starts with the Stone Age, how magic came to be, for instance. And yeah, as you can see here, I think he's riffing, Alan Moore's riffing on like Terence McKenna's hypothesis of the stoned ape theory, where prehistoric humanity came across psychedelic drugs, and that in turn opened their minds to start to communicate in writing and in art and using symbology, which just opened up their consciousness, really. So yeah, it's really interesting. It starts from the history of magic in Alan Moore's theory of how magic began. You've got a really nice intro. You've also got the lives of the great enchanters. I think there's about 16, 17, 18 comic strips showing you the great enchanters from the earliest days right up until Aleister Crowley, for instance. Again, beautifully illustrated and quite funny in places. Things to do on a rainy day is a fantastic section. I think there's 6 sections. Things to do on a rainy day, which is the sort of practical how to. The first part is creating your magical weapons, like a cup and a knife and a wand to place on your altar. And part 2 is all about dream states and lucid dreaming, for instance. And each section goes through a how-to meditation, and yeah, it's really informative. And if you're already an experienced occultist, you'll probably get quite a lot from it anyway. There's a few things that I've read here and thought, oh, that's really interesting. Yeah, I'll put that into my practice. And it's, yeah, I mean, the book is quite a hefty tome, and there's a lot of text, and which is great. The only problem is it's that you need to sort of read it like on a table. It's quite a heavy read. You can't really read it in bed. It'd be really nice if there was a Kindle version, but apparently there will be, so we'll have to see. But yeah, again, it's littered with lovely comic strips. This is by Kevin O'Neill, who did the art for the League of the Extraordinary Gentlemen. And also throughout is a small novel, I would say, and there's like about 8 chapters. I've yet to read that, but it does seem to, these short stories lead on from the things to do on a rainy day, it seems. So you have the practical stuff to do in the rainy day sections, and then that ties in with the story as well, so it gives you sort of kind of an example of how to utilize these magical practices in a story form. But yeah, it's got a section on tarot, a section on Kabbalah. It is, yeah, just full of, it's the astral plane, for instance. It's got loads and loads of stuff that, if you were a complete beginner, it is, yeah, like a primer, basically. But yeah, I would thoroughly recommend this book. It's also sort of based on annuals that used to get as kids, especially in the UK, from the early 30s to the early 2000s. An annual would be something that you would get in your stocking at Christmas. There was a couple of comics that were very popular back in the day called the Beano and Dandy, and every year there would be an annual, and there would always be cartoon strips, little articles and things to do, like things to do on a rainy day. Obviously not a magical kind of thing. It would be like how to make your own paper airplane. And here we are, a cut-out assemble moon and temple that you can make, which is fantastic, very tongue-in-cheek. I wouldn't want to cut it out of the book myself because it's a beautiful book. Maybe you can photocopy it, but yeah, there you go. It's absolutely brilliant, and yeah, I think that would keep one amused for hours and hours. It is a veritable tome indeed, but highly recommended. So yeah, The Moon and Serpent by Book of Magic.